Hello and welcome. My name is Deacon Michael Pasquarella, and I am the Associate to the Vicar for Clergy for the Archdiocese of Philadelphia. As part of my responsibilities, I oversee many aspects of the Permanent Diaconate, including the admissions process. A deacon, whether he is called permanent or transitional, is a member of the Catholic clergy, and he shares in the three-part sacrament of holy orders, along with priests and bishops. Deacons have been around almost since the beginning of the church, and they are a vital part of the life of the church throughout the world, especially with the works of charity. So for the next several minutes, we will explore exactly who a deacon is and whether or not God may be calling you to this sacred ministry. So let's first consider, what is a permanent deacon? A Catholic permanent deacon is an ordained member of the Catholic clergy who is configured to the person of Christ the servant. A transitional deacon is also an ordained member of the Catholic clergy who is also configured to the person of Christ the servant. The difference between a permanent deacon and a transitional deacon is that a permanent deacon promises to be in the state of life permanently, while a transitional deacon is on a path toward the priesthood. Sacramentally, both are deacons, and those moving on to the priesthood and those who may someday become bishops remain first and foremost deacons. This is true because the sacrament of holy orders is one sacrament divided into three parts. The deacon receives the first part. The priest has two parts, and the bishop receives all three parts, which is why we say that a bishop has the fullness of the priesthood. Through the sacrament of holy orders, the deacon is configured to Christ the servant. It is Christ the servant who acts through the ministry of the deacon. Through the sacrament of baptism and confirmation, all believers are called to share in the mission of Jesus Christ according to the gifts of the Holy Spirit. This is known as the priesthood of the baptized. But those who are ordained also offer service in the world in a way that is proper to the sacrament of holy orders. Being a deacon is a lifetime commitment, and the permanent deacon serves as a bond between the church and the world, and therefore he demonstrates the love of God in a real way for both. Now, what distinguishes the permanent deacon from the layperson is that the permanent deacon is a member of the clergy who shares in the hierarchy of the sacrament of holy orders. At the heart of who he is, a permanent deacon is ordained to assist the bishop in every aspect of his ministry, both publicly and permanently. And so, therefore, the service of the permanent deacon is performed in union with his bishop and with the priests of his diocese. Next, let's take a brief look at the history of the diaconate. The permanent diaconate began at approximately the same time that the church began. In the Acts of the Apostles, in chapter 6, the apostles ordained 7 men of good standing to assist them by serving the needs of the community. This means that the permanent diaconate actually existed before the priesthood as we know it today. In the early days of the church, there were bishops and deacons. Priests came later as the church grew in order to assist the bishops in celebrating the Eucharist. However, around the 4th century, permanent deacons began to be phased out, although the diaconate remained as the first step of holy orders for those aspiring to be priests. It wasn't until the Second Vatican Council that the order of deacon was restored to its rightful and permanent place within the church. And on June 18, 1967, Pope Paul VI issued a decree restoring the permanent diaconate in the Latin Rite Church. 1 year later, in 1968, the National Conference of Catholic Bishops restored the permanent diaconate in the United States. In Philadelphia, the first class of permanent deacons was made up of Hispanic and African American men who were ordained in 1982. Today, there are around 300 permanent deacons in the Archdiocese of Philadelphia and approximately 40 men in formation at St. Charles Borromeo Seminary. Next, let's look at the gifts or charisms of a deacon. The deacon has 3 specific charisms that are manifested in a lifetime of service. The first charism is to be a minister of the word. At ordination, the Archbishop hands the newly ordained deacon the book of the Gospels, and he says this prayer: "Receive the gospel of Christ, whose herald you now are. Believe what you read, teach what you believe, and practice what you teach." Through this charism, the deacon has the faculties or authority to proclaim the gospel and to preach, to teach the Catholic faith, and to evangelize both believers and unbelievers. The second charism is to be a minister of the altar. As a minister of the altar, the deacon assists the bishop and priests in the celebration of the divine mysteries, and he has the following faculties: to assist bishops and priests at the liturgy, to serve as the ordinary minister of the Eucharist, to administer the sacrament of baptism, to witness marriages when the rite is outside of the Mass, to preside over devotional services, and to preside at wake services and rites of burial. And the third charism of the deacon is to be a minister of charity, perhaps the most important charism. As a minister of charity, deacons should conform themselves in the likeness of Christ the servant, whom they represent. And above all, they should be dedicated to the works of charity. As a minister of charity, the deacon has the following faculties: to perform charitable and social welfare duties, to visit the sick and to feed the hungry, and to minister to the dying and the bereaved. So our next question: who can become a deacon? First, a deacon must be a Catholic man with a deep sacramental life. The applicant must be a male who has received all 3 sacraments of initiation. He must be a man of faith who believes and professes everything that the Church teaches. If the applicant is a convert to the Catholic faith, he must be fully initiated for at least 5 years at the time of admission to the formation program. The applicant must be at least 35 years of age at the time of his ordination, and ordinarily, the applicant is not older than 55 years of age when he begins training. Regarding education, a high school diploma is required, but most applicants possess an undergraduate degree or higher. The applicant must reside within the Archdiocese of Philadelphia, and he must be willing to make a lifelong commitment to serve the Church of Philadelphia. The deacon is not ordained to serve his parish, but he is willing to be assigned anywhere based on the needs of the Archdiocese. However, consideration is given to where the deacon lives. The applicant enjoys good physical and mental health with no debilitating conditions, and he is willing to submit to a psychological exam. The applicant possesses financial security with a history of steady employment, and his employment does not require frequent or extended travel. If he is married, the applicant has been in a valid sacramental marriage with a stable marriage for at least 5 years at the time of admission to the formation program, and he has the full support of his spouse. If single, the applicant enjoys a stable, settled life with a history of healthy relationships, and he understands that he is willing to order his life toward a commitment to celibacy. The applicant is also willing and able to give time required for study and service during his formation without any detriment to his family or to his employment. And if he is eventually ordained, he is willing and able to serve the Archbishop of Philadelphia in any pastoral assignment that he may be given. This includes serving approximately 10 to 12 hours per week in his assignment, which is most likely going to be a parish. The applicant must pass the required Pennsylvania State Police criminal record check, the Pennsylvania Department of Human Services Child Abuse History Clearance, and an FBI background check. Also, throughout his ministry, he must renew all of these clearances when required by state law. The applicant must have his pastor's recommendation for his application to be accepted. He must also be currently active within his parish community. He needs to be able to work in a cooperative spirit with his pastor and with other parish staff. And he is recognized now and accepted as a leader within his parish community. Now, if accepted, the applicant will undergo 6 years of training at the School of Diaconal Formation, which is part of St. Charles Borromeo Seminary, located in Wynwood, Pennsylvania, just off of City Avenue. The School of Diaconal Formation, through its dean and working under the rector of the seminary and the vicar for clergy for the Archdiocese of Philadelphia, has the primary mission of formation of candidates for the Permanent Diaconate. These candidates, along with their spouses if married, participate in a program designed to prepare future deacons who will serve the Archdiocese of Philadelphia through the ministry of the Word, the ministry at the altar, and ministry of charity. To carry out this mission, the School of Diaconal Formation is committed to a program of formation which provides training in the following areas: spiritual formation, which is realized through spiritual direction, days of reflection, spiritual conferences, and an annual retreat; intellectual formation, which takes place through weekly classroom instruction in theology and homiletics; and human and pastoral formation, which is accomplished through workshops and various practicums. All academics and activities are undertaken with complete fidelity to the magisterium of the Church and in complete communion with the Archbishop of Philadelphia. Also, those accepted into the formation program have the option of entering a pass-fail track, or they may pursue a Master of Arts in Theology. So if you're still considering whether or not you are being called to be a deacon in the Archdiocese of Philadelphia, here are some frequently asked questions that may help you discern if the diaconate is God's will for you. What is involved in the application process? Well, once an application is received, a preliminary decision on whether or not the applicant meets the minimum qualification standards will be made within 1 to 2 weeks. From there, the applicant will be given the full application package, which will include requests for references, sacramental certificates, school transcripts, all required clearances, a full medical examination, as well as instructions on how to register for a battery of psychological evaluations. The applicant will also be assigned an admissions consultant who is a deacon, perhaps assisted by his wife, who will interview and also mentor the applicant throughout the process. How long does it take to become a permanent deacon in the Archdiocese of Philadelphia? As mentioned, the formation program is 6 years in duration, which consists of classroom instruction, an annual retreat, days of reflection, pastoral workshops, and practicum sessions. When and where are the classes held? Classes are held at St. Charles Borromeo Seminary on Monday evenings from late August through May, and begin at approximately 6:30 p.m. and end at around 9:30 p.m. What courses does the candidate take? During the 6 years of formational instruction, the candidate studies a variety of theological subjects such as Christology, church history, sacred scripture, sacramental theology, and moral theology, just to name a few. The candidate will also complete several semesters in homiletics, which is instruction on the art of preaching. Is my wife's consent necessary? Absolutely. Because the diaconate affects and makes demands upon marriage and family, the support and consent of the wife is absolutely necessary. Does my wife need to accompany me to class, workshops, and other activities? It is the ordinary expectation that your wife expresses her support by attending as many activities as possible. Is there tuition? Yes, and at present, candidates pay 1/3 of the typical full tuition cost. The Archdiocese of Philadelphia, not the parish, pays the balance. If ordained, where will I be assigned? As we said, deacons are clerics of the Archdiocese of Philadelphia, and they may receive an assignment anywhere within the Archdiocese. Personal and family considerations are balanced with the pastoral needs of the Church of Philadelphia, for whom the deacon is ordained. So what do we do next? First of all, spend time in prayer and reflection about your possible call to the diaconate. Talk to your family and perhaps a few close friends, and then talk to your pastor. If your family and your pastor agree, then go to our website, www.archphila.org/deacon, and request an application there. Applications are accepted on a rolling basis throughout the year. However, those received after February 1st may not be processed in time to begin the aspirant class, which starts in late August. Well, I hope that this video has answered some of your questions about a possible vocation to the Permanent Diaconate, and I would like to thank you for considering whether or not God is calling you to this ministry. One thing is for sure, the fact that you are here watching this video is an indication that God is trying to speak to you right now. God has a special plan for you. Whether or not you are called to be a deacon, well, that remains to be seen. But in prayer, listen to the Lord's voice, and may He continue to bless you, and may He grant you His grace as you discern His will for your life. May God bless you.